Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Parkinson's Podcast. Welcome to the Hear, Hear Parkinson's Podcast, where you will hear from special guests covering the world of Parkinson's with a deep dive on the World Parkinson Congress and a look at how the WPC has helped make extraordinary progress in the Parkinson's community by creating space for people with Parkinson's to have a seat at the table.
Here, 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 here. We're back with another fresh episode of the podcast series Here, Here, leading us all up to the World Parkinson Congress in Phoenix, May 2026. And I am Edgar Valdmanis, one of 16 ambassadors globally for the Congress, to fire you all up to want to go there. Really. And with me, I have my trusted co-pilot, co-host, Eli Pollard from the World Parkinson Coalition. Welcome on board, Eli.
Thanks, Edgar. Super excited to be here today and for this interview with our science ambassador, Chirine Katribe. So we're really excited for this conversation and eager to get started.
Okay, so let's just kick off then. Hello, Chirine. How are you?
Hi, Edgar. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm looking forward to hearing a bit from the science point of view. Why are you excited to going to Phoenix next year?
Well, I had experienced the WPC in 2023. It was an amazing and incredibly inspiring experience, and it was very life-changing for me personally. So I'm very much excited to have that experience again as a science ambassador this time.
Excellent. So you are a research scientist, really?
Yes, a neuroscientist. So I did my entire undergrad and graduate studies working on neuroscience with a special interest in neurodegenerative diseases, and more recently Parkinson's disease, especially during my PhD thesis. And so the WPC experience was more so at the end of my PhD. I had just completed it. And I was just starting to work for the France Parkinson Association, which is what I do today. I'm a research project manager at this charity association. So I attended the Congress both to present my PhD work and as a representative of the charity.
Excellent. I actually heard some rumors that your interest in Parkinson's came quite early in life.
Yes. So when I was 12 years old, I had two members of my family. One, my grandmother had Alzheimer's disease and a great uncle had Parkinson's disease. And I remember it was quite shocking for a kid at that time to discover people they knew for their entire life having no control over their movements, having memory loss, having cognitive impairments. And I couldn't quite understand what was happening. And at the time, I remember the neurologist of the family tried to explain to me that we didn't know much about these diseases. We couldn't cure them today because the brain was such a mystery. And I became fascinated by this. And I said, okay, when I grow up, I'm going to find a cure for these diseases. And that really helped shaping my studies, my graduate studies, and everything I wanted to do.
I love that. And we benefited from your your childhood sort of trauma that we got you into the Parkinson space. I'm just curious, what did you tell us a little bit about what you presented at when you were at the Congress in Barcelona? What was the research that you were presenting from your PhD? What was it about?
So this research project focused on identifying early biomarkers of Parkinson's disease using non-invasive brain MRI analysis. So it was titled actually Virtual Biopsy of Parkinson's Disease because, as you all know, we can't really have a biopsy of the brain as we can do for most other diseases or tumors in other places of the body. So that's one of the the problems actually that we can't really understand what's going on inside of the brain. But thanks to new technology and especially imaging, non-invasive imaging like MRI, we were able to match what we were seeing using machine learning and artificial intelligence, what we were seeing on the MRI with what's actually happening in the brain. So I had a lot of tissue histology markers that I tried to correlate with what was happening on the imaging. And detecting these cell changes was really associated with the disease progression. So having these virtual biopsies kind of helped for understanding how we can diagnose, how we can better stratify people with the disease, and improving management and prognosis afterwards.
So I just a follow up to that. First of all, that's very cool. I mean, the idea of doing virtual biopsies, amazing, non-invasive. I mean, if I had a choice, I would definitely go that route. But you're not practicing as an active neuroscientist right now because now you're working at France Parkinson's. So is somebody else continuing that work that you were doing? Like, are there more people? Because we want to see that come to fruition. Is that something you think in the near future could be a possibility?
Yes, indeed. So when we start a PhD project, it doesn't end with us. It's like these types of projects. It was really the start. When I arrived, there was nothing. I mean, my PhD thesis director had already started gathering all the information to show that there's actually these like really subtle changes that we can see on MRIs that the machine learning algorithms can detect whereas radiologists cannot. And so they needed some proof. So I did the really first step is trying to, I put rats in the brain MRI and I tried to match with their histology afterwards, the tissue. And now we're going forward with trying to implement these algorithms on huge course of patients in France and maybe internationally. So there is a master student that started with me, and now she's doing her PhD, and hopefully she will be at the WPC next year. So yes, we're very excited to see the fruition of this work. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in a year, but these things take time, and we learn to be really patient in research.
That's a great point, but I just love the idea that it's continuing on because I thought, oh no, this great outcome and it's not continuing, but it is continuing, and I think that's really wonderful. So,
yes.
So that's excellent. Thank you. So I'm of course curious. You now work at France Parkinson's, and France Parkinson's has been a good friend and partner of the World Parkinson Coalition long before you arrived there. And we hope for many, many decades until the cure is found, we'll keep working closely. At the last Congress in Barcelona, France Parkinson's really helped a lot of junior clinicians, junior researchers make it to the Congress to present their work. Can you talk a little bit about why is France Parkinson's doing this? Like, why are you helping people get to the WPC? What outcomes have you seen, and what are you doing for the next Congress?
Okay, so it goes back basically to the key missions of our association. So France Parkinson is a charity organization. It was founded in 1984. So we celebrated 40 years last year. We only have 25 employees, but we have over 500 volunteers all over France. And the role when it started was basically to support and assist people with Parkinson's and their care partners and their loved ones, but also to advocate for policy changes and better support from public authorities. But I mean, one of the main and key missions of the association was to fund research, to encourage and facilitate collaborative efforts and collaborative research efforts, both nationally and internationally. So every year, France Parkinson actively funds research projects on Parkinson's disease through scholarships for PhD candidates and fellowships for postdoctoral candidates, but also 2 or 5 year grants for researchers that are working on actively innovative projects. Since 2010, I think we funded over 290 projects for a total investment of almost 18 million euros. So it's really one of the key missions of the association. But our focus on research is particularly strong, not only on the science side, but we believe really in putting patients at the center of the scientific progress. So today, people living with Parkinson's, they actively participate in our grant selection committees, ensuring that these funded research, they align with their needs. It's not just, of course, we have clinicians, we have fundamental researchers that actually choose, verify the methodologies of these projects and choose them. But there's also members of these committees that are living with Parkinson's disease and that they help choose and give their lived experience, their subjective experience to say, okay, this project actually benefits us. It's very interesting for us. Sometimes we get years where we focus on a lot of therapies, for example, for motor symptoms. And then we have patients saying, okay, but for me, fatigue, depression, anxiety are more important. They're more debilitating. So we want more projects on this. So yes, having this voice heard is very important for us. Additionally, today we develop also training programs for what we call PPR, so patient research partners. That's how we chose Patient Partenaire Recherche. And these are individuals with these lived experience who become sort of expert patients. So these programs equip them with the knowledge about clinical trials so they can participate in working groups involving the trial design at the beginning.
Yeah,
so I know this stuff has been happening in the US and the UK and other countries, but for us, it's really groundbreaking in France.
But a question.
Yes.
This sounds enormous. Where do you get the funding actually for doing the various studies and projects? Is it government funded in France, or is it by sponsorships, or what?
Okay, so our association can only survive with the donations of people. It doesn't get government funding. It doesn't get funding from pharmaceutical companies, or it's just it's a charity association, and it's based on donations. And we have obviously big donators, but we also have just people living with the disease who actually give their time and their money to support. And sometimes they send us a check. It could be for 20 euros. It could be for 20,000 euros. And at the back of it, it's like, this is for research. We'd like to, use it for research, or this is for helping care partners, or this is, so yes.
I love that. I think the work you guys are doing, it aligns so well with at the WPC, we always have a space in the exhibit hall called the Clinical Research Village. And the Clinical Research Village is a place where we do try to educate people, both people with Parkinson's and researchers, about how to come together to align so that people with Parkinson's are always a part of the conversation from the beginning, not just the end. I mean, when I started 20 plus years ago, when we talked to researchers about how do you engage patients, usually they would say, well, when I'm ready for them to sign up for the clinical study, I contact them. I'm like, no, how do you engage patients at the beginning of the process and ask them if the project you're doing even matters to them, if it's even a priority? So we have seen that shift. Slowly, more and more researchers bring people with Parkinson's in early to say, do you even care about this topic? Which is helpful, because then if they care about it, then they'll sign up to participate. But I love to see that France Parkinson's is really doing this taking it quite seriously. And obviously the Clinical Research Village, we'll have to get you guys more involved with the Clinical Research Village next time so we can see what you're working on in France. I would love that. That would be amazing.
I heard something, I think at some point you said, have a seat at the table, let people with Parkinson's have a seat at the table. I love that. I think I'm going to steal it next time I give a talk about this. It's basically, yes, having patient-centered research, just having their needs put first from the beginning and not wait until the end and realize, oh, actually, this type of clinical trial wasn't very effective because it had a lot of maybe visits or I don't know, a lumbar puncture that no one wants to do, so they won't get into the clinical trials. So yeah, we're discovering all of this. It's really the first time that it's been implemented in France, so we're very excited about it. And people working on these trials, so whether it's clinically or more fundamental, they need to see patients. They need to see people with Parkinson's. And I think that's all the reason for sponsoring our researchers to go to the WPC, because it's the perfect opportunity. We don't have many congresses like this. We don't have any actually in Parkinson's, where you get to see, okay, very quality research and clinicians and fundamental researchers presenting, but also people with Parkinson's, their care partners, some professional people working in other health fields that can actually be supportive to the community. So it's really the only opportunity, and that's very, very important for us.
Yeah. How many people did you bring to Barcelona in 23?
So in 2023, we supported over 45 researchers and people with Parkinson's to attend the WPC, including me. So I'm very, very grateful to our scientific director, Dr. Marie Fizzati, who was actually a science ambassador for the WPC 2023, who was inspired by her own experience, I think, at the WPC in 2019 in Kyoto, where she saw firsthand how the impact that bringing researchers and patients together had. And she said, okay, we need to do this. So yeah, and we were a huge community, well, huge in our terms, because I think there was at least a representative of every lab working on Parkinson's in France that went to the WPC. So this year we're expanding the effort. The idea is to have every researcher receiving a grant or a scholarship from France Parkinson in 2025. We'll get the results in June, I think, or July. Will automatically receive an additional 4,000 euros to cover the registration, the flights, and the accommodation for the WPC in Phoenix. So we don't know exactly how many there will be, but we're hoping a lot, quite like 2 years ago. And I think this also can become a snowball effect. We've had people that went 2 years ago, especially team leaders, who said maybe they want now actually to involve their PhD candidates, their postdocs. They want to support them on their own funds. So I think having that experience, discovering this, is going to be a snowball effect, and it's going to help more people, even if they're not immediately sponsored by France Parkinson, they're going to be sponsored by their own labs to go to WPC.
That's amazing.
That would be enormous.
Yeah.
There is pardon me. There is, of course, a certain difference in distance between going from France to Barcelona, which is virtually next door. I mean, some French people could actually sit on the bus from their hometown to Barcelona. No kidding. But Phoenix is a stretch.
Bigger commitment, that's for sure. But we hope they'll all make it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Chirine.
What is the number you're looking at? Even if you said it's hard to say how many. If you were to present a number, what would your target be for bringing people to Phoenix?
30. I would say at least 30, because we already have a few. So those who were financed last year for a scholarship for a 3-year PhD thesis already have in their contracts 4,000 euros for. So I think we have 3 or 4 last year. And this year, it's going to be all researchers. So regardless whether they're students, PhD candidates, or postdocs, or researchers, or team leaders. So yeah, I'd say at least 30. I think the only maybe problem is some of our volunteers. So there are people living with Parkinson's who went to Barcelona. Some of them really wanted to go, but they're thinking that the flight might be a bit too much. Some of them have more advanced cases. So we're going to look also for people maybe who can actually make the trip. But concerning researchers, there's not going to be less. That's definitely a promise.
Amazing. That's such a great gift. I mean, obviously at the WPC, I'm thrilled and so pleased to see that your organization has prioritized the WPC. But in the end, it's a win for your community because your researchers are more engaged. They're more, they have more sort of cross-pollination with the rest of the global community. And basically, they're taking all that knowledge and information and passion back to France, serving the French community. So like the WPC wins because we get nice French contingency, but ultimately it's for your community wins. But on that note, when your grantees returned from Barcelona back to France in 2023, how did you did you notice a change in how people communicated? Did they have to present to their community? Did they have to say what they learned at the WPC? What did they give back after they went to the Congress?
So I know many researchers, especially young researchers, actually presented during PhD days that can happen everywhere in your establishment in universities or in hospital universities. They presented their experience. They presented what they saw at the WPC, how it changed their vision on research and on people. Some of them had never met a person living with the disease, and they'd been working for 2, 3, 4 years in labs with cells and mice and rats, but they never met someone. So you see really that there's a change in perspective, especially for this young generation of neuroscientists and researchers. We also collected a lot of testimonies, actually, of all the people that were sponsored by France Parkinson to go to WPC 2023. We used it. We did an article in our quarterly magazine called L'Echo that actually France Parkinson publishes. And I think I have somewhere here. I took out 2 of the testimonies that I thought were really cool. There was a researcher and team leader in Paris who said, "I have been truly moved by the opportunity to speak and interact with people living with Parkinson's disease at the WPC. Undoubtedly, this experience would profoundly influence the way I conduct research in my lab and mentor my students and postdocs. So thank you very much." There's another one in Montpellier. He said, "The WPC is an experience every researcher working on Parkinson's disease should have the chance to participate in. Meeting patients, healthcare professionals, learning about the latest research advances allowed me to fully appreciate the importance of our daily work in the lab." A huge thank you to France Parkinson for the invitation to the WPC, and I will make sure my PhD students and postdocs get to experience this in the future. So yeah, that's why I was talking about this snowball effect. We're hoping
I want both of those. I want those.
And this is like just a sample. So I think we collected all 45 of the people who were there, the testimony. So I give just 2 from researchers. There's also obviously the experience of people with Parkinson's disease who went with their care partners. I think most of them, they were on a boat in Barcelona. They stayed there. It was right next to the convention center, and they had a blast, and they met so many people, and they were so amazed by all the research happening that they didn't know about. And I remember one of my experiences, I was standing next to my poster, and this woman with very severe dyskinesia came to talk to me, and she was amazed. She said, "I didn't know there were so many projects, so many different projects. I thought, okay, we only work on trying to find a treatment, but actually there's so many things we can do next to it. I'm so happy that research is thriving." And then I got to meet her again while she was playing ping pong. And for me, that was amazing. I saw how I think she took the racquetball and she was completely transformed. She stopped having dyskinesia. We know the effect. I mean, I had read about it in articles, in scientific articles, okay, the importance of physical activity, but I had never seen it firsthand. And I think we're all cheering for her. She won. And I think then I talked to her, and I think it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life.
Fantastic. A couple of more like fun questions from my side. First, the biking. That's biking with a B as in Bravo, not V as in biking. But there is actually a Viking heading up a bike race from Seattle down to Phoenix. Have you considered joining that one?
I wish I could. I'm not a really good biker. I think we can tell maybe our scientific director is not here today because she's an avid biker. But unfortunately, no. However, I know some people who are doing it. And I have some friends living in Seattle who are doing it. And yeah, I think maybe if I could go beforehand to the US, it would have been amazing. But no, I think it's a bit difficult. If maybe one day we will be able to bike from Europe to the States. I don't know.
Well, Chirine, if you arrive early to Phoenix, all the cyclists from Seattle and Toronto and Chicago, they're all going to be cycling down into Phoenix. They're all arriving on the Friday before the Congress begins. So if you're in Phoenix a little early, you can be with me at the finish line. You don't actually have to cycle. You can applaud them and like welcome them and give them a glass of Gatorade or, lemonade, water.
Okay, I'm going to make a note to be there earlier then. Okay, that's great.
And Phoenix is such a great place. It's just a lovely space, and it really the Southwest is, it's so unusual. I live in New York City, so when I go out there and the mountains and the desert feeling, it's just really a stunning place. But yeah, the Friday before they'll all be arriving that morning before it gets hot in the day. We'll get them in the morning, so you can be with me at the finish line, handing out water.
Sounds great.
I think they deserve more than just water if they've been on the bike seat for 30 plus days.
We'll have some beer. We'll have all the options, all the liquid options. I just don't want to
start with water, and then who knows where we'll end up.
Water, Gatorade.
But continuing on that note, we haven't talked about your and mine favorite topic, Eli. Have you heard of the concept called unconference, Chirine?
No, the first time.
The unconference is what happens between the programmed items. And it happens when you and I meet in the lunch queue. And you say, so Edgar, what are you doing after lunch? And I say, I'm going to this and this presentation. Then you say, well, how about stepping outside in the sun instead? I could give you a rundown on what happened this morning. And then we go out and we do a totally non-programmed event. It could be 5 minutes over a very quick coffee. It could be 10, it could be 15. It could be that we then enter something which none of us had programmed in the morning, but that we discover now. And sorry, it's my Parkinson's kicking in here. I find that very often these meetings that take place in the hallways, in the cafes, in outside the Congress Center at all, are just as valuable as the things happening inside. And this in the meetings industry, they actually call it unconference because it's not on paper anywhere. And
well, I love the concept.
Paper, it's not being taped or recorded, but it's still something that you and I learn just as much from. That is not to downgrade the booked speakers, which Eli has fought to come to Phoenix and present, but it is because it just happens and it kicks off from the very narrow route to the very wide experience.
I didn't know it had a name. Obviously, I've experienced it. It's one of the most wonderful parts of participating in the Congress. And I think I have so many memories, so many people I met that way, not inside of a conference or not hearing them speak, but just in hallways trying to find the speaker we want to find and then ending up having a coffee and just keeping these connections. And I think I can confidently say that I met over 10 or 12 people like that I'm still in contact with since the WPC. And now we're hoping to see each other again next year. Some people from other countries, from Australia that I haven't seen since 2023. And now we're just planning on, okay, we're going to definitely have a coffee in Phoenix. So I think, it's the best experience. I know when I went there, I had a list. I took the program. I had a list of all the speakers I wanted to listen to. And I think I ended up listening to maybe half, barely half, because there were so many other things to do. I went to the book nook and spent, I think, several hours there, because every time I went there, there was someone presenting their book or talking about it, and it was amazing. And then I went to speak with people who were at the opening ceremony, because it was wonderful. I mean, I was in tears, and I'm someone who doesn't cry very easily. So yeah, I met people from different backgrounds that I didn't expect to meet, and that I didn't, maybe plan to meet, because I wanted to hear because the science was amazing. There were so many things that I wanted to listen to, and coming from a scientific background, that's what we do. And I think in the end, it was those other very meaningful meetings that I connected with the most.
It reminds me of
Excellent.
something Sarah Rigger said when we interviewed Sarah. Sarah said, "You come to the WPC for the science, but you stay for the people."
Definitely. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's our new slogan. Listen, Chirine, we're getting to the end of this episode. There are 2 exit questions that everyone has to answer. Every one of our guests. We're not letting you off before we have these 2. The first one is your ship went down and you're stranded on a deserted island. The only thing there is 1 palm tree and a traditional record player. And when you see that record player, you think, if I could just have 1 song or 1 album to play, which one would that be?
Oh, wow.
Any genre of music, any type of music. One musician or a band, living or dead, no matter what, but the one that you would really want to play.
I think I'm a big fan of opera, especially Italian opera, and I've watched Madame Butterfly maybe live at different opera halls, maybe 8 times. So I would say Madame Butterfly is Puccini's Madame Butterfly.
I
And
love
the record that keeps going.
Could you imagine being on a deserted island with the 1 palm tree and then just Madame Butterfly and Puccini? Oh God, I would love that.
With the echoes going all over. Oh wow.
A little warm breeze. I'm there with I could do that. That would be great.
Yeah, I think that was a great choice. The second one is another challenge. If you're in an elevator stuck between 2 floors, who do you want to be stuck with?
Oh wow.
Again, living or dead, no matter what. Totally
Okay, so alive or
time and
dead?
space.
Yeah, anybody.
Let's see. So I'm passionate about music and I'm passionate about neuroscience. So mostly I would think someone in these 2 categories. My favorite neuroscientist is Santiago Ramon y Cajal. I know he's been dead for years and years, but I think since I was a kid, since I started discovering the brain, I saw all of the drawings he made of neurons, and I always wanted to meet him. I mean, that's never gonna happen. I think at the first page of my PhD thesis, I wrote one of my favorite sentences that he said, and it's here. As long as our brain is a mystery, the universe, the reflection of the structure of the brain, will also be a mystery. And I think, we're still ways before trying to understand everything that happens in the brain. So I would love to be with him if I can be stuck in an elevator and just, pick his brains about that.
I love that. Both great choices. I love these questions. I always get stuff. You never know what people are going to.
I did not expect that. You said funny questions, but I didn't know what to expect.
These are very serious questions. They tell us a little bit about you, and we love that.
Yeah. Good. Many, many thanks for being with us today, Chirine. And
thank you so much for having me.
And I'm looking forward to meeting you live in Phoenix, Arizona, May next year. Thank you.
Looking forward. Thank you so much, Edgar. Thank you, Eli. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Thanks, Chirine.
Thank you for joining the Here Here Parkinson's podcast. If you would like to experience the next World Parkinson Congress for yourself, to feel and see the change in real time, save the date to join us from May 24th to the 27th, 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. Learn more at WPC2026.org. This podcast series is made possible with support from Blue Rock Therapeutics.